everyone, this is Demel Gonzalez of Heartwood Financial Services. Hey, welcome to our latest financial wisdom video. Now, this month's video is going to be about the story of Lewis and Clark. You know, they had this great expedition of trying to figure out where the Northern Passage was and trying to figure out also where the end of the Mississippi River was so we could figure out how big this Louisiana Purchase really was. And so there's a lot of really cool metaphors that we could use about their expedition and our own retirement journey and the lessons that are learned from it. So after reading this great article that went into this, I thought I'd share this with y'all, and I hope you enjoy. All right, so lesson number 1, the expedition of Lewis and Clark was a lot like retirement. We're heading into the unknown, right? You've never retired before, so this is something new. Just like Lewis and Clark was heading into what really not a lot of people have ever explored before. And there was a lot of danger in what you were doing. You didn't know if you were going to get attacked by Indians, if you were going to get sick eating something poisonous. And once you got started, it was very difficult to turn back around. You know, you were kind of on your path. And you had to be self-sufficient. You had to have knowledge of the area and kind of what was up ahead. And so you definitely could see that there's a lot of great metaphors to retirement. So let's get into this. All right, so Lewis and Clark did eventually have a successful expedition, but it was only because they were extra well prepared for the journey. So think about all the questions they had to have. You know, how many men do we need? What kind of preparations do we need? What kind of food and boats and clothing and the type of people they need to bring that could hunt or that could do translations in the different Indians that they were going to encounter. So many things that they had to prepare for. This is a little bit like retirement. You know, when am I going to be able to retire? How much do I need to retire? What am I going to do in retirement? How do I get an income stream in retirement? When do I claim Social Security? And so these are all these questions that we have that we need to prepare for. So like Lewis and Clark, let's get ready for our journey. So again, if you think about retirement as a journey, there's going to be different milestones that we're going to want to hit along the way. And so let's see how this looks like with this Lewis and Clark metaphor. All right, so here is a map that shows the different milestones along the way of Lewis and Clark's expedition. This took them about 3 years. And so at the very beginning here, you see they started in Pittsburgh, where they built their keel boat. This was this big iron ship that they were going to put together later. And they packed all their provisions. They got all their stuff ready. And so this is a little bit like pre-retirement planning, right? Where you get together and you look at all your investments and you think about how much income you're going to need in retirement. You try to do that analysis. Probably want to start doing that before you actually retire. So this is kind of where they were here in Pittsburgh. Now, along the way, you could see that Lewis actually invites Clark to join him somewhere in Indiana along the way. So this might be the metaphor where we could talk about where you maybe want to include somebody else to help you with the analysis and the preparation for this big trip. This is where maybe you can have a financial advisor, an attorney, a CPA, go along with you to help you crunch the numbers and help you get prepared. And as you can see here, they actually went all the way to St. Louis and they stayed there for a little while until the time is right? You don't want to retire before it's too soon or too late. You want to make sure the time is right. So again, they wanted to wait through winter of 1804. All right, as they went along their trek through Iowa and then heading up the Mississippi, you could see that they encountered a couple tragedies. Charles Floyd dies. He actually died of appendicitis, the only person they lost in the whole trip. And then when they got to the Dakotas, they actually met some local tribes people that were able to help them translate. And so this would be analogous to making sure that you're preparing for the things that aren't necessarily always financial, those non-financial things, like preparing for what you're going to do after retirement. Maybe creating some of those social networks and some of those routines, at least thinking about what those might be. And then the translator part, the gentleman here in this article talks about how this is a great time to check in on your blind spots, to talk to people that can help you understand what you may encounter that you didn't know you would encounter as your blind spots. Again, those professionals that I mentioned earlier in the metaphor here. And then eventually they got to the Continental Divide about 2 years later, but they got there. And that would be like reaching retirement. You finally get to the pinnacle, you get to the point where you can retire. And they did head all the way over to the Pacific Ocean and finally did make it. They never actually found a river that connected through the mountains like they hoped. It ended up being a lot more treacherous, but they did make it because, again, they were well prepared. They came with the right help, and they eventually had a successful retirement. So you can see how this works pretty good for a retirement journey as well. So as you can see by the journey that Lewis and Clark took, it was treacherous. There were a lot of things that were unexpected, but they were prepared. And one of the biggest things that they were prepared with was having the right people in their boat. And so I would equate this to retirement and that journey. Retirement planning should not be something that you do alone. It is something that would be helpful to do with other professionals that have helped others throughout these similar journeys that can help you along the way to make the ride happen, hopefully sooner and safer and without a hitch. Well, I just said without a hitch, but we always have a hitch. Life always throws us a curveball. So we have to be ready to adapt for the unexpected. Lewis and Clark, they had all these boats, and once they got to the mountains, they realized, well, we can't take these boats with us anymore. And good thing they came prepared with somebody that knew how to build ships out of logs. And so once they crossed over the Rocky Mountains, which ended up being a much more daunting passage than they ever thought, they finally made it across and found more rivers that headed west, and they were able to build ships so that they can, or boats, so they can make it further along the way. So adapting to the unexpected, it's going to happen. So Lewis and Clark encountered many risks along the way. One of the biggest risks was dealing with the native population. They didn't know if they would be welcome there or not. And so in preparing for this trip, they actually brought lots of different items that they could use to trade with the Indians, hoping that that might grant them some favor and passage through and maybe even some help. And it didn't work out perfectly for them, but it was enough to get them through. And so this is also the same in retirement. There are definitely risks that you need to be aware of, that you need to mitigate going into it or along the way. Different things like, how do you mitigate the fact that some years you can have several, 2 or 3 bad years in the market that could really put a dent in your portfolio if you weren't prepared with some sort of cash on the side or an appropriate asset allocation strategy to help mitigate that risk. So there's different risks, and again, it helps to have somebody that can help point those risks out ahead of time so you can prepare for them. Since Thomas Jefferson told Lewis and Clark to go out and explore and try to find these routes, one of the things that they did once they made it all the way to the Pacific Ocean was to try to find alternative routes to get back to St. Louis, because that was part of their mission. But it does teach us that we need to have an open mind to finding alternative routes. Sometimes we can find better routes, or sometimes life, again, just throws us curveballs and we have to change strategies. So you have to have that open mind to maybe doing something like that. And so this would be the final point, is to be open to explore those alternative routes. Just like Lewis and Clark. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video about Lewis and Clark and all the different parallels that run into our retirement journey with their grand expedition. And the last, which is my first thought, the second thought was that it's pretty cool, and this was talked about by the gentleman that wrote the article, that when we read books or articles or anything, that it's great to try to create metaphors that could relate to things that are on your mind, that are in your life. And it's amazing the kind of things that you can discover when you create these different metaphors and do more, I guess he would call active reading rather than just reading and getting through it. I thought that was really great. So I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for watching, and God bless.